And good evening and welcome to Two Deep, a football podcast with you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com, Eric Eager, Sumer Sports, SumerSports.com. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City, 810WHB.com, where you can hear my radio show 2 to 6 p. Central Time. And we've got a lot to get to tonight on a double barrel. That's right, with Thanksgiving coming on Thursday. We're going to go ahead and run the Two Deep and the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast at you, both of them tonight. So if you're catching us via the podcast, normally we stream the 2D podcast Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Central. Coming at you a little bit early this week, but still no less enthusiasm as we've got a number of things we want to get to. Are the 49ers the NFC's best now? Where do the Eagles rank after a narrow survival against the Colts? Where does Dallas stand? Is it time to move on from Zeke Elliott? Are the Vikings a fraud after getting just absolutely destroyed by the Cowboys? Jets bench Wilson? They better. Is the league sleeping on the Bengals again? Are the Ravens good enough on offense? Can Eric's Lions, no longer Jeff's Lions, Eric's Lions, pull the upset on Thanksgiving Day against the Buffalo Bills? And is there any merit to the NFLPA's lawsuits alleging collusion against NFL quarterbacks? Also, what are we all watching? Jeff, let's get things started with you. Are the 49ers now, even though by record they're not, but actually the best team in the NFC as we stand here today?
I still like Philadelphia, but I will say that San Francisco is the scariest team because what they look like when they're healthy is pretty good. And yeah, it's hard to match what they have on offense with Christian McCaffrey in the backfield now, with Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and that whole group, the big offensive line. Their defense, when it's healthy, they've had 4 defensive starters play the entire season, which is crazy. But when they're healthy, probably the best defense in the NFL. But those are a lot of ifs. You know, you have to have a lot of things fall your way and get people right. But, you know, Philadelphia, to me, what I love about them is that they can beat you so many different ways. They have a dimension to them that the Niners don't have, and that their quarterback can run. And you saw that the other night with the way they played and the plays that Hurts made down the stretch against the Colts. But certainly the way San Francisco played against Arizona on Monday night had to catch your attention just because Garoppolo looked great. McCaffrey was running all over the place. Kittle was making plays. And there isn't that much in the NFC to be scared about. So if you've got a pretty good defense, a quarterback who's played in the Super Bowl, and you've got that offensive weaponry, you're probably pretty high on the list, but I'll still take Philadelphia for now.
Okay, Eagles still at the top of Jeff Chadiha's list. Where do the 49ers rank if they knock them off? For the Cowboys with their big win? One of the ones you look at right now, Eric. Where's your list looking?
Yeah, I know Jeffrey Benson, the sportsbook operator at the Circa Sportsbook, said that the Niners would be favored on a neutral field against any other team in the NFC. So I think that has at least a little bit of notability there. I actually and it's weird because every single team, right? Like the Niners can lose to the Falcons with injuries. They lose to the Chiefs pretty handily. You have the Eagles, who have struggled the last 2 weeks against inferior opponents. Dallas lost a 14-point lead to the Packers on the road the other day. That's the team I'm going to go with, though. I like the Dallas Cowboys the most, especially, you know, and this one's going to be weird, but like as long as they can stay healthy on the defensive side of the ball. I agree with Jeff that the Niners could be the most talented defense in the NFL, but I also think that when you look at how you scaffold that defense for the Cowboys, you have Lawrence, you have Micah Parsons, you know, sort of on that first level of the defense. Then you have guys like Jaron Kearse, Trayvon Diggs on the back end of that defense. I know that they've struggled with injuries at corner. And then when you get Dak Prescott, I know Petro, you know, like, but we're talking about 3 teams now with quarterbacks that are all sort of at least a step below the great guys, right? And of those 3 guys, Garoppolo, Dak Prescott, and Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott's the best of them. So that's where I go with Dallas.
Really? You know, it's not that I dislike Dak Prescott. I think I just accurately portray what the man actually is. I mean, is that possible that, you know, he's not, you know, Patrick Mahomes? He's probably more Jimmy Garoppolo than he is Patrick Mahomes. Is that fair?
I think that's generous to Garoppolo, but Garoppolo's kind of earned it at this point. Like Garoppolo is running that offense extremely well. So yeah, I mean, Dak has those games, man. But like against the Vikings, the guy was about as perfect as you could be. So he's got that. I think he has that high end quarterback play. Again, I put him in the Stafford tier. Can Dak win a Super Bowl? Yes. Do you want him over any of these other sort of truly elite guys? No. But that's a little bit higher than I think Hurts and Garoppolo are.
Yeah. How about this comment from Donovan? He says, "Yeah, but there are no quarterbacks in the NFC." Right? Is that not giving credit to what Jalen Hurts is doing, to Dak Prescott, to Kirk Cousins, to Jimmy Garoppolo? I mean, these are the contenders. I mean, before we would have said it was Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I think that's why he was the favorite, was that he was supposed to come out and dominate because he's the best quarterback. He and Tom Brady. Yet their teams aren't there. So is the reality that those guys are over the hill, and Donovan's right that the quarterbacking isn't good enough really to worry about it. It's more of a crapshoot in the NFC than anything else, Jeff.
I don't know if they're. I think what you're seeing with those two guys, Rodgers and Brady, is just what happens when you don't have the optimal supporting cast around the quarterback. No matter how great your quarterback is, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, whoever young guy you want to throw in there included, Joe Burrow, you start taking away pieces, it gets a lot harder to play that position. And so, yeah, I think it'd be a different conversation if you had, and Matthew Stafford's in the same boat, by the way. If you had those three guys in the conversation with better supporting casts around them, better circumstances, it'd be a different conversation. But that's not to take anything away from the guys who are in the mix right now, the Kirk Cousins, the Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott type guys. I mean, ultimately, every season, there's only going to be a couple quarterbacks, 2 or 3 maybe, who are at the point that are going to be Hall of Fame worthy. Okay. And I always laugh at this because people forget what Eli Manning was being talked about before he won a championship, or the way Peyton Manning was being talked about before he won a championship. I mean, they were getting destroyed by people. And so I try not to take that. I try to take that stuff with a grain of salt, just because I know that we live in a world where if you're not Michael Jordan or LeBron James, people think you're crap. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, I think there's those guys I just named in the NFC could all win championships this year because that's the way the year's gone.
Better way to rank quarterbacks, Eric, is it passer rating or is it QBR?
QBR is better than passer rating.
Okay. How about this?
I think you have to.
Well, how about
Go
this?
ahead.
How about let's play this game? Where the NFC quarterbacks pop up in the top 10 of QBR. Okay, I'll give you the AFC guys, and then you tell me the NFC guy who fills in the number. Tua is number 1. Patrick Mahomes is 2. Josh Allen's 3. Then there's an NFC quarterback. Who is it at 4?
4 is Jimmy G, probably.
Nope.
It's Jalen Hurts.
Or Hurts.
Nope.
Because Hurts it does good with running. Yeah.
It does good with running. By the way, Jimmy G is 19th. Jalen Hurts is 5th. Not far off.
Brady?
The quarterback at 4? Geno Smith.
Geno Smith is at number 4. Tom Brady is at 15. This is what's so amazing. 6, Jacoby Brissett. 7, Lamar Jackson. 8, Derek Carr.
I didn't say 9, QBR was good, though. I said it was better than passer rating.
Okay, 9 is an NFC quarterback that has not been named.
I mean, Brissett's played well, though. I mean, if you watch Browns games, the guy's not been a nightmare. Brissett's made himself $30 million this year.
Okay. 9 is another NFC quarterback. Care to take a guess?
Cousins?
I would never get this. Who'd you say?
No, Cousins is like 25th. Cousins has been awful this year.
Another NFC quarter. Okay, let me.
I mean, don't kill yourself. Cousins is 22nd.
Okay. Justin Fields?
Justin Fields is 14th. There's a 9 and 11 with Justin Herbert at 10. 9 and 11 are NFC. Joe Burrow is 12.
Is Goff up there? Goff's throwing too many picks, right?
Goff is 13. 9 and 11.
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones is 9.
Because of running. See, but when you know why these things, yeah, it's just the running thing is too much, right?
And 11 is Marcus Mariota. So I come back to the question that Donovan asked. I mean, again, it's just one metric. It's just one way of looking at it. But like, is that, Eric, when we hear those kind of numbers, is it reality that whoever you want to think is good isn't really that good? If these guys, this motley crew of who we're stuck with right now, not who the franchise is enamored with, are actually the guys that are being rated the highest in the NFC.
Well, I think that some teams are doing a fairly solid job of kind of making things work with quarterbacks who aren't perfect, right? So, like Geno Smith has been great as a drop back passer. He's also been great as a runner. They've done a lot of things to make his life easier, but he's also, to his credit, done a great job of making plays that are often difficult to make. So, Mariota's the same way. Like the Falcons are not playing to Mariota's weaknesses. I can say that.
Do we all right? So the Vikings 7 wins by 1 score. Does that make them officially frauds, Jeff? I mean, not fraud. Maybe fraud's not the right word. They've won those games, right?
Yeah.
But does that make them vulnerable?
Well, I think every team in the NFL is vulnerable now. I think we can all agree that Buffalo, Philadelphia, those teams that were really running away in the beginning have come back to earth. I think that the Vikings are in that mix of teams that you catch them on the wrong day, they could do what they did in Buffalo. You catch them on the right day, they could be what they were against Dallas. And I think that game was more about the combination of the Vikings not playing well and Dallas just playing out of their minds. And it's rare you see that kind of that's the kind that I said on the radio. That's an Alabama, Louisiana Tech type game. You don't see those in the NFL very often, but I do think what Eric was saying earlier, that the Cowboys have a defense that can match up with the Vikings in a way that some teams just can't. And they have a corner who can travel with Justin Jefferson and contain him to a certain degree. They did that with him in that game. They have obviously a dominant pass rush. So, there was one play in that game, if you watched it, where DeMarcus Lawrence just like ran right through the left tackle, over the running back and right into Kirk Cousins in like 3 seconds. It was just like, it was so astonishing how quickly it happened. And then, they had no answer for Tony Pollard. And so I do think that was an alarming game for them. But again, I look back and say, how many teams in the NFC this year have their resume, have their talent? They have one of the 5 best players in the game in Justin Jefferson right now. Dalvin Cook is an all-pro caliber running back. They have more than most teams have. And so were they exposed a bit? Yeah. But are they still a team that you have to contend with in the postseason? Yeah, I think they still are.
Yeah, the Vikings have a puncher's chance, right? That's how I'd put it. But do the Cowboys have the knockout punch? Eric, let's talk a little bit about the running back position, because Jeff just mentioned Pollard. Why is it 15 carries each when you look at the box score between these two? Why is Pollard carrying 15 times for 80 yards and Zeke Elliott getting it 15 times to run half the distance, 42 yards? Like, can you explain what is happening with the running back carries being allotted in Dallas? Still there, Eric?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, my internet cut out a little bit. Did I look funny? Okay. I would say
always
that,
look funny.
when
That's
you look at,
not a question for just tonight.
by the way, you said something about the Vikings. You didn't let me talk. The Vikings -2 point differential this year. They had 17 first downs against the Commanders, 16 first downs against the Cowboys, 11 first downs against Miami. I think it's a little bit weirder that they've had a weird season. But to talk about weird, the thing about Zeke and
wait a minute. Hang on. Don't just tease the Vikings thing. If you had more on the Vikings, what like?
Well,
so
they were they had the point differential of a 500 team. Like,
right, but that can mean one of two things. It can mean part of it's because they just got hammered by 40 points. That's a big part of it. Now, I get you. Your beloved Nebraska Cornhuskers last year, I think, were +1 in point differential in the Big Ten and only won 1 game. It's because they hammered some downtrodden team and then lost every other game by 1 score. They weren't good, as we saw. It wasn't it wasn't that they were building towards something. The Vikings aren't losing them all by 1 score. They're winning them all by 1 score, which I do believe good teams find a way to win close games. Bad teams find a way to lose close games. But are you look, I think we're all fading the Jets. If you're a gambler, nobody's buying the Jets, at least with Zach Wilson. We'll get to him in a little bit. I'll fade the Giants the rest of the way. I don't think they're real. I've been ready to fade the Eagles the whole way. I think they're a very good team, but I don't think they're as good as they've looked. Are you ready to say that the Vikings are the 2013 Chiefs, 9-0, and then they went 2-5 in their last 7. Are we going to see some kind of 2-5 type finish for the Vikings, which would still probably they can still get to the postseason? Are you calling them mediocre, a fraud?
Well, they are mediocre, but I think Jeff's thing is like everybody's mediocre, and I agree with him. Like their schedule down the stretch is incredibly easy. Still, they still have the Jets, the Giants, the Lions are going to beat the shit out of them. But sorry, I used the one there, but I wanted to get a reaction out of Jeff, and I didn't really. So, but they have an easy schedule down the stretch, so I don't think they're going to implode. But you're talking about a team that Kirk Cousins has averaged like 1.5 yards less per attempt this year than he normally does. Like, he's been brutal. And I think they match up poorly with teams like the one they're going to face this week in New England. Like, I just think that their offensive line, especially if Darrishaw's going to be out and he's had concussions consecutive weeks, like it's going to get ugly for them before it gets better. And the defense is, riding high, but that's a pretty rough setup when you're depending upon like a 32-year-old corner to be an all-pro.
All right, now let's move on to Pollard and why they give the carries to Zeke Elliott. I mean, I saw somebody said, well, I think it was Tommy said, Pollard runs the outside stuff, Zeke runs the inside stuff. Not well. I mean, you can gain more than 2 yards a carry inside. It's not like, those are the body blows that have to be invested in to hit the home run outside. I mean, why? I think we all know why they're paying Zeke Elliott. I teed you up, for God's sake. This is something you've talked about forever. They're trying to justify the contract, are they not?
Yes. The funny thing is, though, you can see it in the tracking data and stuff. Linebackers still respect Zeke. They still respect play action when Zeke is the running back. So I think the league respects Zeke, even though, and the Cowboys also respect him because of what they've paid him. Whether that has merit or not is up for debate. But yeah, like I don't know. Do you guys find it like we've seen, with a lot of players as as volume goes up, efficiency goes down. That has not been the case with Pollard. But like, do you feel like with Zeke the way he is, having that 1-2 punch? I mean, we saw it in Kansas City in 2010, right? With Charles, with Thomas Jones and Jamal Charles, where it's like every carry that Thomas Jones had was bad, was 3.7 a carry. And then Jamal Charles comes in for 5.6. And it's like, why are you even messing around with the Thomas Jones stuff? Now with Jamal Charles, like, his efficiency didn't go down that much when he got more carries. I think that they're thinking about, okay, using Zeke to set up Pollard, but I don't know. I think in big games they're going to want some of those carries they give to Zeke back.
Jeff, I had the same thought, except for Zeke Elliott is not looking as effective as Thomas Jones was in combination with Jamal Charles. But there was a thought process there that, well, you needed Thomas Jones to kind of hammer away. He was softening him up for Jamal Charles. And when they got rid of Thomas Jones and just started feeding Jamal Charles, he became one of, if not the best running back in football. And they're all going to get hurt. So why are you wasting the best days? Or is this the way of keeping Pollard's legs healthy and okay, come playoff time, now that's when you unleash the fury of Pollard and say, okay, we're going for the big hitter at that time. Is this just a load management thing that the Cowboys are actually being smart?
Well, I was in Dallas a couple of weeks ago and was asking people that question. And the sentiment down there is that Pollard isn't big enough to do the stuff that Zeke does, that he would wear down. Which I'm with you. When you watch Jamal Charles at his prime, he wasn't wearing down. He was killing people. And every time I watch Tony Pollard do something in a game, it seems like it's electric. If you watch that Vikings game, he was catching passes out of the backfield. He was running routes against linebackers and going, 60 yards with them. He was getting big runs. But, it's when they lost Dak for those 5 games to that thumb injury, they realize the importance of running the football. So I do believe this is part of their mindset, that they need both these guys, and that Zeke is the better pass protector. He is the better short yardage guy. You saw that in that Vikings game early when they had a goal line situation and Pollard got 2 handoffs, couldn't score, and they gave it to Zeke and he scored. But again, they don't have enough weapons in that offense to limit what Tony Pollard can give them. That's how I look at it. Like, you need to have – he's their best big play threat. He's better than CeeDee Lamb. He's better than whoever, Noah Brown, whatever else you want to throw out there. Odell Beckham Jr. shows up. he's better than that guy. And so you better have somebody in your offense who provides that element if you want to go deep in the postseason with a quarterback like Dak Prescott.
189 yards from scrimmage, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was the guy that really made it go in that route of the Minnesota Vikings. We've kind of touched a little bit on the Eagles, but let's touch a little bit deeper. You know, I mean, teams can have a bad day, right? As you look at it right now, they're a game clear of the Vikings. They're, you know, of the other division winners, which are what they really have to worry about. They're 3 games clear of the Niners, 4 games clear of the Bucks. In their own division, they're 2 games clear of the Cowboys. They've got Green Bay and Tennessee at home, at the Giants, at the Bears, at the Cowboys, New Orleans and the Giants at home. You know, can we look at the Eagles and just, Eric, say, okay, well, maybe they're not quite as good as they looked when they were undefeated, but they're still by far the class of the NFC. And why are we getting the Kansas City Chiefs lost to the Colts. So why would you ding the Eagles so hard for finding a way to survive and advance against a Colt team that seems to have, shockingly to most, gotten a shot in the arm from Jeff Saturday being made the head coach?
Well, isn't it just like the way in which it happened? Like, I think the real reason we were all up in arms about, you know, the Kansas City Chiefs loss to the Indianapolis Colts was how it looked, right? It looked like Pat didn't trust the offense. It looked like this, that, and the other thing. When I watched that Eagles game, and I have friends who work for the Eagles, so I'm always like kind of texting during the game and stuff. So I was watching that game intently. It looked like Jalen Hurts can't drop back to throw when the other team knows that he has to. And you look at that final drive when they did score the go-ahead touchdown, it was handoffs, quarterback runs, an underthrown ball for a pass interference penalty. I mean, I don't think he completed a ball on that drive. And so I think that it's less the Colts being their bugaboo and more that when the chips are down, it's like Jalen Hurts, does he necessarily have, his style of play conducive to winning football games? All kinds of football games.
15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions for Jalen Hurts, Jeff. I mean, it's very much kind of a Ryan Tannehill from a few years ago type of season. I mean, incredibly efficient. Listen, you want to be a naysayer? He's Case Keenum in his 1 year with the Vikings, who put up his career season. But, you know, and even fought hard in the playoffs, but couldn't get it done. You want to be a believer? He's early Tom Brady, right? Like Tom Brady's numbers, you know, early on weren't overly impressive, but when he needed to make plays, he made them. And that's what Jalen Hurts did in the game against the Colts. And as long as his legs are fresh and they're able to pack a lot of talent around him, that run pass threat is real. I mean, do we not, is this more about people questioning Jalen Hurts and not being willing to say, okay, maybe he's not going to compete with Patrick Mahomes for the yardage and touchdown record, but within this team, within this scheme, he creates enough problems that we should be giving much more credit to the Eagles and to Jalen Hurts thereby.
Yeah, I think he does. I mean, I put it more in that Russell Wilson category, early career Russell Wilson, in terms of he needs to have the run game going. He needs to have the defense behind him to be successful. I do wonder how much they missed Dallas Goedert, because he was a valuable weapon to them and for him in the middle of the field, just as Patrick Mahomes has his Travis Kelce, a guy who's going to make a play for you in that intermediate range. Like Goddard is a Pro Bowl tight end, and to not have that, I couldn't name the guys they had playing behind him. I don't know who they have on that roster playing tight end. Now that Zach Ertz is gone, but it's a huge loss now, and you could see it in that game as you watched it play out. And Eric's right, there was a discomfort that Hurts had in the pocket that you didn't see before, where I think he knew, I got all these weapons out here that can make plays for me. But I think Nick Sirianni is a smart play caller and has played to his strengths all year long and will find a way to make it work. I still feel as if Jalen Hurts is somebody who is growing into something, as opposed to somebody who can be defined by what's come before him. I just think he's the new age, just as Lamar Jackson is that, just as Josh Allen is that. We're seeing a new age of quarterback coming of age, and we often want to compare it to the guys that we know, the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, people like that, if you want more of a scrambling guy, to what Patrick Mahomes is now. And the reality it's like we just don't know how these guys are going to look 5-10 years from now, but they have a chance to win now because they're talented and they're playing with good teams.
You can get on a roll too and have momentum, Eric. We've seen the teams that maybe the quarterback was just having a great season. He would maybe not go on to be a Hall of Famer. Jeff talks about the Hall of Fame quarterbacks before. Mark Rippon and the 91 Washington team got on a roll and rolled that all the way in there. Joe Flacco got hot with the 12 Ravens. We've seen teams do that. We've also seen the Ryan Tannehills, get stopped. Which one does this look more like to you with Hurts and the Eagles?
Well, I think they'll be favored in almost every game moving forward here. So I think that they won't run into issues. I mean, Dallas is a team. It's hard to see them winning every one of their games down the stretch, right? So I think they'll win the division. They'll probably get a 1 seed. So it's just like, okay, who's coming to Philadelphia in round 2 of the playoffs? I think that team that runs in that it's sort of like Jeff brought up Eli Manning, right? So Eli Manning wins the Super Bowl in 7, right? In 8, they go 13-3 or 12-4. I can't remember. McNabb comes into Meadowlands after a bye and goes and beats them because McNabb is a better quarterback than Eli Manning was. And so like that, I could see that. I think it depends upon who they catch in the first round or 2 of the playoffs. And to Jeff's point, whether or not with Sirianni, who I think is a good coach. In fact, I've estimated that his decision-making has earned them like half a win above the average coach. Like he's done a great job this year. Like whether or not that they can get the week off, they can give him some scheming, and then he can go and play a better playoff game than he played last year.
Speaking of quarterbacks, Jeff, one that has not been good. In fact, I've seen a number of different things written. 20 career starts, 41 quarterbacks have I guess like 41 quarterbacks have been drafted in the last like 3 or 4 years that have made 20 starts or more. And Zach Wilson is dead last in everything. I mean, not even close. He obviously did a very poor job of answering the question. Do you feel like you let your defense down? Of course. How can you not say when you score 3 points, you let your defense down? That's a no-brainer. So not only is he not smart enough to figure out the right answer to that, but he's made all kinds of bad throws. And I'll be honest with you, immediately after the game, Robert Saleh was like, no, he's our quarterback. We're sticking with him, which is just a pre-programmed coach response. When a coach says that after the way he's played, you're talking about a guy who is basically like, this is what coaches say after the game. No thought was given to what he was really being asked or what would actually be the right answer for his team. I think that got back and blew up on him.
Yeah.
Behind closed doors. Like that's the
Or
part.
say like,
I think that's the part that's maybe the most underreported on with this is not the Zach Wilson, because then he comes out the next day and says, I'm still evaluating the tape. I won't commit to anything. I mean, Zach Wilson blew it, but didn't Salah kind of blow it as well and maybe lose some standing? Now, maybe he can gain it all back with that next comment on Monday, or maybe not. Maybe you lose a little like, hey, if you can't see this guy, like what I think players, Brian Waters told me this a long time ago. He said, what you want as a player is for a coach to put you in positions to make you look good. In other words, give me schemes that allow me to succeed. Don't ask me to do things I can't do. Emphasize the things that I do well and come up with good plays that allow us to look good, right? That's what players want. Having, immediately backing a guy who defiantly says, no, he didn't let his defense down is not doing that for players. Is that the bigger part of the equation? We can talk about Zach Wilson. I think that's easy. Sit down, kid. You're done for right now. What about the Salah piece of this?
No, you're right. I mean, I did have that same reaction to, why is this happening now? Even before it got to that point, the week before, he was talking about people are holding the kid hostage for some bad plays. And he was really a big supporter and standing behind him. That's not, you can't go from that to where he is now to where it's like, yeah, we might have to sit this guy down and play Joe Flacco or Mike White in his place without having somebody in your ear saying this is unacceptable. And I was in New York in that locker room, a month ago, and all the good vibes, they had just beaten Green Bay, all the excitement they were feeling, young team, a lot of talent in the room. And I'm sure Salah knows this, but I also know I'm sure the GM and the owner, Woody Johnson, feel the same way. They want to capitalize on this. They are relevant for the first time in, 7-8 years that people are talking about the Jets, and they are right in that eastern corridor where the Eagles to the south of them, Giants right next door, A lot of love being shown to all these teams. They do not want to lose that right now and become the laughing stock of that region or this league again. And so that's a big part of this. It's there's so much potential in that room, and to have it being blown up by a quarterback who can't figure it out on the field or in the press conference, it's a dangerous place to be. And so, yeah, there's a precedent that's been set here now. Carson Wentz was a number 2 pick. Jared Goff was a number 1 pick. Russell Wilson won a championship. They moved on. So you damn sure can move on from a guy who stole 4 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions this season, and is really the biggest weakness for your team right now.
Yeah, and I think this is a relevant question to put up here. Donovan said, was Salah there when they drafted him? Yeah, he was the head coach.
Yeah.
They've both been there 2 years. He was on board. Now, as a rookie head coach, and a defensive coach, I doubt it was like he was pounding on the desk. This is my guy. We're going to go all the way. I'm sure it was a consensus decision. Eric, you know how hard it is to tout a quarterback. You were big on Zach Wilson when he came out. There was a lot to like about what he did at BYU. It's not working now, and I think how do you react to adversity? How do you lead men? Those are things that are tough to figure, but I don't think he's helping himself out just based on his attitude. I don't know that that's necessarily just killing him, but he's making a lot of bad throws as well.
Yeah, I think this stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of the game by Salah in some ways, right? Like the last time they played the Patriots, Zach Wilson moved the ball pretty well. He just threw a ton of interceptions and they lost, right? And in that game,
very bad back foot, lob it up for grabs.
Yeah, of course, but they moved the football on Sunday. And I know that there were the throws that could have been intercepted. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't turn the ball over on Sunday. They just didn't move the football, right? Like they literally went 3 and out on like every drive. And I think Salah was kind of like, as a defensive coach, like, I got this. I can win a game with my defense as long as you don't make mistakes, right? That was probably what was said to Zach Wilson. And so Zach Wilson doesn't make them. I mean, some of them were dropped, but like on the scoreboard, he did not throw interceptions. And he's probably like, well, Zach did his job. It's my job as a defensive coach to get a defensive touchdown or to not have a punt return touchdown. And so I think in the moment, he's like, oh, Zach did his job. Like we're literally asking, the soft bigotry of low expectations for Zach Wilson or whatever it is. Like we're literally asking him not to do anything. And he didn't at least lose the game. When in reality, yes, he did by not gaining any yards over the course of the game. And I think that's where Zach Wilson, when I saw his response, that's exactly what came to my mind is like, I didn't throw an interception. It's like, dude, you didn't move the ball though. And like, I think that's where you get this kind of galaxy brain out of defensive coaches and defensive minded teams where it's like, they say, look, no, we can win this with our defense. It's like, no, you can't actually. You need some offense to win in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think this comment by Joshua was a good one. Brutal for Jets fans, even when they're having a half decent year, it still feels hopeless. And that's the way it does. I mean, I like no one considers the Jets a contender. They hold one of the playoff spots right now in the AFC.
Yeah, they have a better record than the Chargers.
Yeah, they actually they don't. I'm sorry, they just slipped out this week. They're in front of the Chargers.
The Patriots
still, on the first one on the outside looking in, but they're not getting there, Jeff. I mean that it is, and that's and the whole. I think Eric's right. Like you get a defensive coach and just don't make a mistake, and we'll win it on defense. No, you won't. You won't. Just like you won't hold a team to 37 points in the NBA. You're not winning a game where you are in a 3-3 battle. Even whoever wins that day, irrelevant. You both suck, and neither one of you are going anywhere.
Yeah, and this is not a team that hasn't invested heavily in offense. I mean, they went out and they signed Corey Davis. They drafted Elijah Moore in the second round, who wanted to trade, by the way. He was unhappy with the offense. They drafted Garrett Wilson this year, who, by the way, had really bad body language on a couple of routes he was running. He clearly was unhappy with the quarterback. Breece Hall is out for the season now. Elijah Vera Tucker is out for the season now. And so, one, they've put a lot around this guy early in his career. But two, when those things start going south and you have a young team, the opportunity for that split to happen in the locker room, for the defense that has been carrying his team all year long to start feeling like, yeah, this guy ain't the guy. And it's hard to believe that there are many people in that locker room on the defense side of the football who were excited about Zach Wilson. Probably the biggest week in Robert Saleh's career with the Jets is happening right now. What he does at that position with his quarterback determines what happens with him and this team in the future.
Against a Chicago Bears team that is eminently beatable, yet I think might be favored against the Jets. That can't be. They can't be.
No, the Jets are, because Justin Fields might not play. The Jets are favored by about 4.5 or so. But if Justin Fields does play, it also is like a little bit of a, hey, you stuck Zach Wilson became the favorite to be the second pick of that draft, early, right? Like you planted your flag and said, it's Zach Wilson here. And you never gave Justin Fields a thought at 2. And I know Fields hasn't been, perfect, but he's been a lot better than Zach Wilson has been. It also there's egg on your face possibilities this weekend as well.
Yeah, Trey Lance, Mac Jones in that equation as well. And they were always dialed in to Zach Wilson. All right, let's talk about the Bengals. Jeff, is the league again sleeping on the Cincinnati Bengals? 6-4 right now. They're the 7 seed. I will give you this: at Tennessee, Kansas City, Cleveland, at Tampa, at New England, Buffalo, Baltimore.
We're about to find out.
That is salty to finish up the season. Should they enjoy this view of the playoffs because it'll be their last?
I think they'll win some of those games. I feel like, and Eric knows this too, because Eric had this mindset about them. They are the most disrespected good team in the NFL. The Tennessee Titans don't have anything on the Bengals. And when you look at what they've been doing, and they had a clunker in there when Jamar Chase went down, but they found a run game a little bit in there with Joe Mixon. He went off. Joe Burrow went off this past week, going for 355. I just feel like once Jamar Chase is healthy again, and I think he's off crutches now, and they feel optimistic he might play this week against Tennessee, and then he'll be back in the lineup, for good moving forward. That they get him back in there, they will be dangerous. They will be a team to be dealt with. They're not winning the AFC North because the Ravens have the complete opposite schedule that you just rattled off to the Bengals, one of the easiest schedules left. But I certainly feel like once they hit their stride and once that quarterback gets going, they have what the Jets don't have in Zach Wilson. They have a belief in their quarterback that he can get them through some things. And they also, I think they always played better when they're underdogs. And so the more people discount them, the stronger they become. And so I feel like, I think there are people who are sleeping on them because once they can get Jamar Chase back in the mix, that offense can start figuring things out again.
What's it feel like to you coming down the stretch? Can they go 4-3 and get to 10-7, which may very well be enough to hold off? Will certainly, I think, be enough to hold off the Jets, hold off the Colts. Will be enough to hold off the Chargers. Where are you on buying or selling on the Bengals playoff chances right now, Eric?
Yeah, it's tough, because Jeff said the Titans and the Bengals are similar. Like the Titans are 1.5 point underdogs at home to the Bengals this week. Like, I think the Bengals are plenty respected, especially relative to the Titans, but it's just going to be hard. Like, the Titans are good. Like, my thing, and this obviously to Jeff's point, like the Bengals do well when they're down, but like the Bengals feel like a team that the Titans just beat randomly this week again because they just have the secret sauce and stuff. I don't think the Chiefs are going to take them lightly, of course, in 2 weeks. Buffalo. Is Buffalo going to get healthier or less healthy down the stretch here? There, because like those and et cetera, et cetera. Like I just think Tampa Bay, like I just think like it's going to be hard. They're going to have to steal a game or two when they're underdogs ish, and they can. But they've also played down to their opponents. Like this last week against Pittsburgh, like they let Pittsburgh's offense stay in that game, and that offense is dreadful.
Yeah, I do like this point that. This right here, Bengals would be a tough out as a 7th seed. Yeah. Can you imagine your Dolphins or the Bills or the Chiefs, Titans, Ravens, whoever ends up in that 2nd seed, and you get the Bengals first? Like, no, hard pass. That makes that 1 seed that much more valuable in that AFC, so you don't have to mess around playing that game in the opener. If you're going to play that game, then it would come up a little bit later. Of course, the Bengals could make their way up theoretically into that 4 or 5 game where, you know, they could be seeing the 1 seed in the divisional round as well. All right, let's talk about the Ravens offense. They had a tough day last week, Jeff. Are we now not liking, even though, as you mentioned, the schedule, and the people haven't heard it, at Jax, Denver, at Pittsburgh, at Cleveland, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, at Cincy. Bengals, the only team with a winning record left on their schedule. Bunch of 3-7s on there. Does it even matter? I mean, they got time. If there's a problem, they sure as hell got time to try to fix it before they get to the playoffs.
Well, they're running out of bodies to catch passes. I mean, that's part of the problem is that, you know, who was the guy who was with the Chiefs last year?
Marcus Robinson had 9 catches for 128 yards on Sunday.
When you're going to him for your offense in the passing, that shows you what they've lost in the passing. He's supposed to be your 4th receiver, and he's your leading target. I mean,
he got cut by the Vegas Raiders.
Yeah. Showed up like 3rd, 4th game of the season. It was, no Rashad Bateman is a big deal. They've had tremendous hope for J.K. Dobbins, and as much as I like Gus Edwards as a running back, J.K. Dobbins could have given them a dimension that they haven't been able to find in their offense. And it's really Lamar Jackson out there trying to make the best of what he has with him. And that's at some point that's tough to do. And I also feel like they're playing more to their defense right now than they have in the past. Quietly, Justin Houston has been reinvigorated there. They've gotten Tyus Bowser back, which is a big addition to them because he's really good in man coverage and a pretty good blitzer. Obviously, Roquan Smith. They feel like they've got some pieces on defense now that give them a lot of opportunities to make plays. They don't have to go out there and score 30 points to deal with a defense that's going to give up a 17-point lead. I think they're playing a different style of football, partially because of the injuries, partially because of what they have on defense.
Yeah, they lost Ronnie Stanley early in that game as well. I think he'll be back, but that's not a great, that's a bad injury for them. Gus Edwards was really good when he came back. He sat out the past couple. Now it's like Kenyon Drake who's running the ball for them, so it's really rough. Andrews has missed time. He played the other day a little bit. But, to Jeff's point, you add, it's Houston, it's Pierre-Paul, it's Calais Campbell, it's Bowser, it's and then you have Roquan. Patrick Queen now, it doesn't look terrible because Roquan Smith does all the things that Patrick Queen used to suck at. And then and safety grades for PFF are whatever. But Kyle Hamilton is the highest graded safety in the league. He's doing a lot of cool things kind of down in the box. They have Chuck Clark to go with him. And you've seen better play out of Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey of late. So that defense is a pretty good defense. I think the hard part's going to be I think that they're going to look really good with this schedule. They can win 13-3 against Baker Mayfield because Baker Mayfield sucks. And they can probably win some of these games down the stretch against bad offenses. If they get in the playoffs, is it going to be like that Buffalo game in 20 when they can't even score a touchdown because they're against a real NFL defense and offense can't produce, and the other team's offense can at least produce. The Chiefs would put up 24 against them easy, but a bad offense is not going to put up anything against them. So they're kind of being, overlooked. Their bad things are being overlooked right now by the schedule.
Devin Duvernay, can somebody figure out whether or not he's good in Baltimore? Because he has a tease game early, gets some touchdowns and returns, but they don't seem to be able to unlock him. Is this an OC problem or is this a Lamar Jackson problem? That there are guys that they take that just don't seem to be able to that look like athletes that were playmakers in college that they don't make into playmakers in the NFL. Jeff, I mean, why?
Well, I think part of it, and I'm curious to see what Eric thinks about this. It's hard to have that kind of gadget player in an offense with a quarterback like Lamar Jackson because your opportunities to utilize him are just so random. Either you just hand the ball to him and say, go make a play happen, or you're trying to throw to him. But the quarterback is just so all over the place with the passing offense. It's like if he's playing with Patrick Mahomes, it's a whole different thing because you can build chemistry, you can scheme things up for him. I just don't think that, I'm trying to think. Marquise Brown's the only receiver they've had there who's really been highly productive right on the outside. And even he is somebody who played with off-script quarterbacks in college with Kyler Murray. So it's just, it's just, and this guy's a kick returner by nature, so he's not like a polished receiver anyway. So it's just, I think he's kind of like the guy that the Chiefs had out of Oregon a few years ago, who never really did a whole lot.
Thomas.
Yeah, he's a DeAnthony Thomas type player. Yeah, he's a DeAnthony Thomas type player.
Yeah, but he at Texas, he could go. I mean, he looked like kind of the Debo Samuel of the Longhorns. They'd hand him the ball, he'd go catch it. Listen, and it might be that he just doesn't run routes, right? Like he is what you said, he's a kick returner. And then in college, you can get a guy the ball in his hands in those situations and make some plays. Not as easy in the pros.
Jeff's point about the Ravens, I think, is right, though, because like 40% of your plays when you're the Ravens have to be directly at the line of scrimmage with Lamar, right? And so I don't think you want to be moving laterally with Lamar Jackson. You want Gus Edwards downhill, right? You want Kenyon Drake downhill, and you want Lamar, downhill, right? So any of the any of the sideways stuff, I just don't think works in their scheme. So it's got to be in the passing game. And the other part is like Lamar's not as bad throwing the football necessarily as I think his naysayers say, of course. But I think where he does struggle is the sort of like 0 to 5 yards. Like where Mahomes is just, everything 0 to 5 yards is automatic. Like with Lamar, I think he's better in the intermediate area and the deep area, but you just don't get that kind of opportunity in Baltimore because they run the football so much.
Yeah, no doubt. By the way, you're listening to our 2 Deep podcast. It's brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area, including OP, Olathe, Independence, Lee Summit, Shawnee, Blue Springs, Lenexa, Leavenworth, Leeward, Liberty, more, you name it, they serve it. Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot, and we appreciate them supporting local football talk, and we'd appreciate if you'd support our local advertisers, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Find them online at gannasphalt.com. Let's go, Jeff. The Detroit Lions, formerly your Lions, now Eric Eager's Lions, they're hot. They're rolling. Can they pull the upset on a Bills team that is not rolling?
Yeah. Second biggest game in Michigan this week for those who don't follow Michigan, Ohio State football. But yeah, bravo to the Lions, Dan Campbell, for that 3-game winning streak. I don't see them beating Buffalo. Buffalo's playing a home game now. They were in the Motor City last week beating up on the Cleveland Browns. But as much as I like the Lions story, and as much as I think they do have potential, they've just wasted so much of the winnable games. And it's, like 4 one-score games now that they've lost in the season. They could have, 48-45 against Philadelphia, and could have beaten Dallas for Jamal Williams doesn't fumble.
They had 14-point lead against the Vikings on the road and lost that game. And then they had a 14-point lead against the Dolphins at home and lost that game. Like if you're a Lions bettor or you wanted the Lions to make the playoffs, you really had to snag those 2 games.
Yeah. And
said the guy who's a Lions bettor and really wanted the Lions to make the playoffs, Eric Eager.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm kicking myself. If they win that game at Metrodome, they're in the hunt for the NFC playoffs. They're 500 right now. I still think they have a chance. If you look at their record, if you look at their schedule, Jeff, it is like it's cakey, and they're beating the Vikings. At I was going to say in Pontiac just for the bit, but they're beating the Vikings at home. Like and I don't know, like Jared Goff when Amon-Ra St. Brown plays is actually like a halfway decent QB.
Yeah, I just don't think they match up well with the Bills. Yeah, you're talking about a defense that's are they still the worst defense in the league, by the way? I know they were killing it for a long time, but
I think so. But they've got, last week they held Saquon Barkley to 14 carries for 25 yards. Aleem McNeil had like his best game. Aiden Hutchinson has 5.5 sacks, 2 interceptions.
Eric just talking about holding Saquon Barkley down, the only weapon the New York Giants have. Offensive.
By the way, the question was asked, are they still worse than the NFL? By 26 yards a game, yes.
Okay.
There's part of the journey, Petro. Part of the journey.
1.3 points per game, yes. They are still the worst in the NFL, giving up 28.2. But I will give Eric some credit. I mean, I think you are, if they can find a way to beat this Bills team, then it's definitely game on. Even if they don't, Jaguars, Vikings, and, Eric loves them against the Vikes there, at the Jets, at the Panthers,
Yeah.
Bears. I mean, am I smelling a potentially
By the time they play the Bears, that's Trevor Siemian, baby. And then look at Week 18. You know who's starting for the Packers in Week 18? Jordan Love. That is a dub as well. I'm telling you, restore the roar. They're going over 6.5 wins. They are.
Well, they better.
Well, they're at 4 right now.
That's what I'm saying. That was the bet. The bet was they were going to go over 6.5 wins.
Oh,
that was the restore the roar.
Yeah, well,
That's
I don't know
not a
that the
roar.
roar is restored at win number 7.
Yeah.
7-10 is not
Yeah.
restored.
If they go 9-8, Petro, they win
cashing
5.
a ticket. 9-8 is not restoring the roar either.
Oh, come on. They might
that-
get Wayne Fonts back in the building if they get 9-8. He might come wear that windbreaker.
That's restoring the yawn. You know, I mean, like a roar means
No one said they were going to go 12-5 this year. If they go 9-8 and make the NFC playoffs, that is restoring the roar.
Listen, I don't know how long Geno Smith's deal with the devil lasts, you know, on the way he's playing, but I'm not buying that the Seahawks can maintain it. I think the Giants are a potential free fall away from seeing the Lions neck and neck in the standings. So I will not, you know, I think the Commanders have something to say about it. I think they've got a pretty salty defense, but yes, there's no doubt improvement is being made with the Detroit Lions. Real quick, is there any merit to the NFLPA's lawsuit alleging collusion against quarterbacks because they're not getting guaranteed deals, Jeff? I mean, I don't even know how you begin to make this argument.
Yeah, it's very hard to prove it. If NFL owners were doing that, they would not put anything in a memo, in an email. Look, I do know this. I do know when Kirk Cousins signed his deal with the Minnesota Vikings years ago that I was at a pro day and Marvin Lewis was there and he was pissed about it. And so I can imagine that was $84 million, by the way. So I can imagine what $230 million does to owners around the NFL. They do not want to be guaranteeing contracts. For two words, Zach Wilson. They do not want people like that thinking they can start making really good money, because that's where you really start getting. It's not the Patrick Mahomes of the world or the Josh Allen people they can get concerned about. It's people like Jared Goff. It's people like Carson Wentz. It's people like Russell Wilson at this stage of his career who could get that kind of money and would not produce and would capsize your salary cap. So I don't think it's, well, I shouldn't say the NFL does not want this. I think it's very hard to prove what the NFLPA is alleging.
I think one thing I would say here is it's already progressing that direction. You're getting more and more of the money guaranteed.
Deshaun Watson has a fully guaranteed deal.
Yeah.
Boys. Like this,
But that's the jumping
problem.
off point for the lawsuit is that they said after that like they should all fall in line and be fully guaranteed, and that's what they're really pushing with the lawsuit. But that was a unique situation where a franchise caliber quarterback, all granted tarnished as all get out with the stuff that's going on off the field around him, but a franchise caliber quarterback was really on the open market and was available. And I think unless, somebody's going to play it out all the way through 2 franchise tags and get to the open market, I don't think you're going to get there because there's a simple answer. 15 in Kansas City isn't fully guaranteed. Why are you going to get fully guaranteed? I think that's the get out of jail free card, but they are trending in that direction. The next guy who has the shot is probably Patrick Mahomes. When the rework of his deal comes around, he's going to be able to be like, I'll hold out. And I don't care what anybody in Kansas City thinks. No. You got to be careful. And if he says, I want it all guaranteed, yes, sir, Mr. Mahomes, here it is. And you don't mess with
after this year, right?
Yes.
Well,
yes. He's the guy that can change it, but I don't see – it's not Lamar Jackson exposing himself to hits. Why would you guarantee a contract for any running quarterback? I don't get it. All right, what are you looking at? Jeff, you got a game, got a matchup, got anything in particular for this weekend that you got circled?
New York Jets. What's going to happen with the quarterback? I mean, that's to me is the most interesting story of the week. And if Zach Wilson is playing football, can't feel good about where this team is going the rest of the year.
Yeah. It also comes with a Bears team that's reworked its offense and has been a little bit feisty with Fields and a guy that was obviously drafted after him that could be playing there. I agree. I think that's a big one. Eric, what are you looking at?
It's actually sneaky here because obviously the Thanksgiving games are going to be cool, in my opinion, but it's a Sunday game. I actually am really looking forward to Falcons, Commanders. Falcons are 5-6, Commanders are 6-5. One of those DS teams is going to be firmly in the NFC playoff race after that game. And, you know, I bet some on Commanders early in the season, so I'd like to see them win. But that game is sneaky because both teams you didn't expect much out of, and they're feisty right now.
I would like to point out you censored the word dog, but said ass. So I'm not sure what
I said DS.
Oh, okay.
Dogs.
Okay. All right. My bad. I think you said D-ass.
I said LDS, like a Mormon slam.
No, that I know Steve Young had to stand up for Zach Wilson on Monday Night Football, but that wasn't on my mind.
Has anything ever gone wrong faster than the Arizona Cardinals? Flying high early last year through 10, 11 games, and then even staying the course after they kind of petered out and then just had a no-show in the playoffs, paying the quarterback, paying the coach, paying the general manager, and they're an unmitigated disaster right now. We had a couple of comments earlier, like Kyler Murray, is he even going to be a quarterback of the Cardinals next year? Probably, just because you can't get out from under those contracts. But should he be? I don't know. Should they all be back? No. And the Bidwells aren't exactly the type to spend a lot of money. Cardinals have a chance to try to turn things in the right direction. They host the Chargers. And the Chargers are now 4.5-point favorites, but either the Cardinals' demise continues or the Chargers are now sub 500. One of those two things is going to happen, and I think it's going to be a storyline, whether it's Eager's head exploding off the Chargers losing and falling below 500, or just a continued demise of the Arizona Cardinals after handing out hundreds of millions of dollars.
To be fair, I bet the under on the Cardinals this year. I did not bet the under on the San Diego. So, I actually would like to see the Chargers win that game.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for us. But doubleheader tonight. If you're a fan of our Red Gold and Bull podcast, we got to re-rack a couple of things and then get that up and running. We're going to do that tonight. If you catch us on the podcast, Too Deep, we stream it normally Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Central. We're doing it on a Tuesday because of the holiday. Hit us with those likes. Hit us with the loves, the subscribes. Don't cost you nothing, but it does a lot of good for us. And, of course, hit up our great sponsor. If you've got any kind of parking lot needs, Gann Asphalt and Concrete proudly serves the entire Kansas City metro area. Full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Incredible work they've done. Check out their website, GannAsphalt.com. You'll see just how good they are. If you've got a business and it's got a parking lot and you need any kind of work done, the folks at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. They do a fantastic job. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, my name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City, saying thank you very much for joining us on